Good evening, friends, and welcome to Emerging Practices in Quaker Outreach 2016. Thank you all for making the time in busy lives and the effort you've made to come often some distance to be here together. Our work for tonight is simply to orient ourselves to this place, to frame our time together, and to begin to build our circle and know which friend from which place is sort of coming with which piece of the outreach work. Many fruitful conversations and collaborations are already happening among friends in this room and between friends in this room and the wider community. So our first task really is to name and affirm that we are a community of practice. We are not isolated individuals who sort of go back home and are isolated once again. But our hope is that this conference is a springboard for more collaboration, for more conversation, for more work, sharing the message of Quakerism and thinking deeply and intentionally about how to welcome people into our worshiping communities of witness, work, and service. We hope to listen to encourage the work that begins here, and we're doing this in a couple of ways. We'll be videotaping parts of the conference to share later. Friend Kevin Lee in the back is a marvelous photographer, and he is feeling moved and offered to take photographs during the weekend. If for whatever reason that's uncomfortable for you, come on in, Robin, welcome. If that's uncomfortable, please let Kathleen know that so that we can make adjustments in that. And many of the documents that you've already sent to me have been posted online. I sent you an email earlier today with that link. So we're hoping to provide you with a notebook of paper resources, because that's often the way people, cultural transmission for Quakers is still often hand to hand and tote bag to tote bag. But we're in a digital age, and we're actually on the cusp of both of those worlds. So we're doing print and digital to kind of cover everything.
We threw a party and some people came. Welcome, friends. My name is Noah Baker Merrill, for those I don't know. I'm from Putney Friends Meeting in Southern Vermont, just up the road, and I serve as NEYM Yearly Meetings secretary for the yearly meeting, which means I serve in a staff position supporting the faithfulness of our local meetings and all of the programs and ministries that we together share across the 6 New England states. And I wanted to just offer a word of framing as we gather into our time together tonight. There's a story that a friend shared with me about a Quaker minister from Africa who visited Earlham School of Religion in Richmond, Indiana. And he was welcomed as a guest because he was going to be speaking to the group, and he was given a tour by some of the folks who were hosting. And they explained that midway through the week at Earlham School of Religion, the whole community gathers for a common meal over a lunch, and often they have a speaker come and be part of that. Before they have their common meal, they all gather in the foyer, in sort of the lobby, that the folks who've been to that place, I know many people here have, where everyone gathers in a circle and they pray together before they go in to eat. And the friend who was visiting said, that sounds like a really beautiful practice. I have just one question. Is the circle facing in or out? And I think that's a question that people could ask about our work as friends in general. Maybe it's a question we could ask a little less than we have in the past, meaning maybe there's a little bit clearer answer. Somebody told me in preparing, I won't out you, in preparing for this event, this event never could have happened 10 years ago. It wouldn't have happened like this. There wouldn't have been a community of friends from all over North America who decided to get together, that this was the event that they were going to devote their valuable time and energy to being here for, to have this conversation, this living conversation about Quaker outreach. It seems as if the circle is turning outward. think the head's nodding. I think folks are recognizing what I'm saying. There's this growing openness in the sense that there is a generosity of spirit and an invitation that we can offer more widely in the world. And this feels like an important part of that conversation. So thank you, friends, for being part of this. And my hope and prayer is that we together will be that circle turning outward, not just facing outward, turning inward for the life that we encounter together, joining hands around that circle, the circle of people who are here and all the folks in the communities where you are working and living and serving, and then turning outward to share what it is that treasure, that precious gift and experience that we're here because we know we have to offer in the world. So, New England Yearly Meeting, like many of our other yearly meetings, I know has been lately, in the last few years, asking the question, what is a yearly meeting for? We're standing in this meeting house, the North Dartmouth Meeting House, which, as you heard, came here fairly recently. This is an old Wilburite conservative meeting house from the southeastern coast of Massachusetts. It was disassembled and moved up here for a new purpose. So these walls have been washed with the prayers of generations of faithful friends. And yet we're using this for a new purpose. You notice that the chairs and the benches are set up somewhat differently than they were when this was, when the women's and the men's side were divided with the dividers. It's now a place that many, many years of youth in New England Yearly Meeting have come and had youth retreats. It's a place where workshops, spiritual formation events happening, and a place where events like this happen. So, metaphorically speaking, right? What's a yearly meeting for? In some of our yearly meetings, we're having to disassemble, I would argue, in all of our yearly meetings, we're having to disassemble those pieces and say, what do we do with this piece? How do we put it together? So, one of the ways that New England Friends have been exploring that is that this last summer at our annual sessions, we reaffirmed that the part of our yearly meeting that is an organization, right? At our heart, we're a people of faith. We're the network of communities all across the 6 New England states, or in any of our other places where we come from. But there's also a part of our yearly meeting, and each of our yearly meetings, that is, in some sense, an organization. Some of us have more infrastructure in that way than others. But we affirmed in New England that the purpose of the organization is to support and strengthen the web of local friends meetings and other friends communities under our care across the 6 New England states. So we're trying to live into what does that actually mean. I think this gathering is a part of that. And we also, on top of that, affirmed a set of priorities for our work, and one of those priorities is outreach. And so this gathering is living into what that means. And I share that because I think it's sometimes important when we get to that question of what are we doing here, to remind ourselves. This is something that we have felt this deep calling to do, and this is one of the ways that we're inviting friends to live into that. Not just for New England, but much more widely. So that's why New England Yearly Meeting is hosting this gathering. But we recognize that it's not just for friends from New England. Would you raise your hand if you are a New England friend? Half of the people at this gathering are Quakers from meetings across New England. Another quarter of the people at this gathering are friends from what seems like it's becoming our sister yearly meeting, the New York Yearly Meeting, right across the border, right? And the other quarter are friends from all over the place, from friends institutions, from global friends, leadership roles, from other places. So there's such richness of friends who felt led to be in this room. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. So we know this is New England Yearly Meeting offering this work not just for New England Yearly Meeting, but for all of us, for the work that the Spirit is doing through us. And we hope that that really will be true, that this is a place where we can be aware that you heard Mira talk about the local food. You heard all the things about Woolman Hill. This is intensely local. Beth has this word she uses sometimes. We probably need a better word, but she calls it terroir Quakerism. You know, that way that like cheese or wine or something has a particular taste of the soil and the climate and where it is. So you're getting a little bit of a taste of sort of terroir Quakerism here. But it's also, we hope, really broad and open. So New England friends, just encourage us, if there are friends who know this floor of this meeting house like the back of your hand because you've slept here on countless retreats, bring that wisdom and that experience and share it, but let's keep the openness to the experience of friends who've never been to New England before, who are also joining the conversation. Just that outreach, that circle turning outward, that hospitality. I want to share a story that I think I've only shared one time before, but it felt right as we were gathering tonight. I had a real gift last year to spend some time at a retreat that was organized by Bill Graustein, a friend from New Haven meeting. And he has, for many years, since actually a retreat here at Woolman Hill on emerging ministries, been led to invite people to storytelling, to sharing really intimately the stories that were so important and formative in their lives. And he does that in all kinds of different contexts, in ways that empower social justice communities, that build build bridges between different community advocates. And that has been a really fruitful ministry that he's been engaged in for a number of years, particularly in New Haven and also nationally. And I was blessed to be able to attend this storytelling retreat. And at this retreat, it was one of the most diverse gatherings that I've ever spent a week in. Hearing the deep, significant stories of people, particularly in terms of racial and ethnic diversity. And I had some really powerful connection with people who were there. It kind of broke me open in a lot of ways. And there were a lot of people of faith at the retreat. And one of those people was a woman named Jessica, a young woman just a little bit younger than me, who grew up as a leader in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. And she was doing all kinds of really awesome social justice and community development work. And she gave me permission to share this story. We were sitting up really late one night, and everybody else had gone to bed. And we had one of those conversations that, I don't know about you, but for me is a particularly difficult one to have, about race. And I shared with her, because we knew we were both people of faith, we knew we were both in trying to be useful in leadership roles in different faith communities. And I said, because it felt safe, I said, I really, the Quaker community is one of the whitest faith communities in the country, and I really struggle. I don't know what to do. There's so many things, so many people who care so deeply, so much work that's happening to look at how we could open a wider welcome to people so that our religious society could look more like the world, at least in North America. I said, I don't even know if I can ask this, but do you have any suggestions about what we should be doing? Because sometimes it just feels so stuck. And she said, I do have one suggestion. She said, don't put your energy into trying to get people of color to become part of your faith community to make it more diverse. She said, be as clear as you possibly can be about what you are inviting people to. And then do everything you can so that when they get there, that's what they find. Not all the other hidden, unspoken stuff that it's really about. Don't just tell them all the best about what your faith community has to offer, but invite them to be part of that journey if people are led to do that. And that has stayed with me, and it felt like an important thing to offer tonight, recognizing that is a pivotal and essential challenge for us as we begin to talk about outreach, right? We're going to have a further conversation about racial inclusivity tomorrow. And obviously these conversations are happening, and really important work is happening in all kinds of places. But I wanted to lift that up. So what's the invitation? Becomes a really important question, right? If we're doing outreach, what are we inviting people to? And we're going to have some time tomorrow to consider that question. When we do elevator speeches, when we do other activities, to look at how really are we articulating what's most important. So what we're doing here this weekend, I want to suggest, is not the event. Like often, I don't know about you, but I go to Quaker conferences and there's this big emphasis that we're going to get together and then we're going to fix this thing. We're going to do that thing, or it's going to be convened by an organization that is then going to come up with a program and a plan, and we're going to get that done. That's not what we're doing here this weekend. The event, in a deep spiritual sense, has already happened and is already happening in our lives, in us, in the world. But even more importantly, the event is what you all are doing already and what you will be going back to do. So this weekend is not the event. This is a way station along the journey. This is an opportunity for us to gather together, to be fed, I hope in more ways than one, to listen for how the Spirit is with us in this time, to share resources to support us as we carry that work home into all the different contexts in New England and all kinds of other places where we're living that work. And I hope and I pray that this is a nourishing time for us. I'm reminded more and more recently that there are few things more powerful than gathering a group of people who share a concern. Sometimes I think as friends we want to come up with the next program, we want to come up with the next plan. And that work is really important. But to relieve ourselves of that responsibility, to not have to fix anything this time, to not have to hold whatever responsibilities we're holding, and just to be together in the presence, open to how we might be taught, open to what we might share and encourage with each other. I hope that's part of the invitation for this time. So as we go into the weekend and as we open up the circle and hear more of who we are in the room, I want to invite us to keep our inward eye on three things during our time together. The first, and I hope the most important, is the deep invitation that is at the heart, I believe, of our meetings and of what we have to offer to people. To welcome one another to that place where we encounter the living presence and we learn by turning, to come to that place of deeper life, to become, I hope, as Robin Moore says, the Quakers that the world needs, so that we hold that center of the circle as we join hands, that life that we encounter together and that I know is with us and will be with us this weekend. The second thing I hope we hold this weekend in the circle turning outward is the awareness of all the others in the circle and all the others who might be invited into the circle, many of whom are not Quakers, many of whom are people in other faith traditions who are asking all of these same questions, who are facing all of these same challenges, and who are in relationship with that same center. What new ways of connecting around that circle, both here and beyond, might there be? What barriers to that connection and collaboration might be removed? And the third thing I hope we'll hold is the condition of the world beyond the circle. And to remember that no matter how many people come in the doors of our meetings, no matter how many new members we get, and no matter how much they contribute, it will make no difference at all if we are not helping people to live in a way that responds to the needs of our world. And so when we invite this conversation about outreach, it is about all of the nuts and bolts and all of the particular pieces and all the particular strategies and all of the ways we can communicate more effectively, but I hope we just continue to hold that awareness that the needs of the world are too great for us not to do this work. So thank you for being here. Thank you for all of the gifts that you're bringing. I hope we can relax into this time, have the conversations that we need to, and leave fed, energized, celebrating how the circle is turning outward. It's really good to be here with you all.